Hello there, welcome to another beautiful Wednesday morning here in the city of Lagos, Southwest Nigeria. And of course, it is another interesting edition of Today in the News, broadcasting to you live on Vanguard, platform here this morning. And of course, we are going to be looking at some of the national dailies, news that are making, top stories on the national dailies. And of course, we are going to be starting off with Vanguard this morning. Okay, so let's look at what the Vanguard is leading with, morning. And of course, we have FG's reliance on borrowing must end. That is coming from President Bola Ahmed TINUBU. Of course, you can get that story on the page 5 of the Vanguard. Well, of course, he's saying that he's going to end, over reliance on loan, and that is really, uh, commendable from what some of the economic analysts have said about such a decision, coming from the president. Okay, you can get that story on the page 5 of the Vanguard this morning. Okay, let us look at all the stories making rounds on the Vanguard this morning. Above the nameplate of the Vanguard, Niger coup. ECOWAS ultimatum, not Nigeria's mandate. That is also coming from President Bola Ahmed TINUBU. Okay, before we leave Vanguard for all the papers, let us look at this story. Strike. Nigerians are dying. FG begs striking doctors. That story is on page 3 of the Vanguard this morning. Okay, a very interesting one also is TINUBU committed to improving citizens' welfare. That's coming from Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. That's the DG of the WTO. Okay, let's quickly move on to the Nation and see what the Nation has on its front page this morning. Federal government begins reform to end 20 trillion naira yearly tax losses. Federal government begins reforms to end 20 trillion yearly tax losses. Well, that is a story on the front page of the Nation. Okay, above the nameplate of the Nation is a story that would be of interest, to Nigerians that are politically inclined. And it is APC defends president's choice of ministers. APC defends president's choice of minister. Pick a copy of the Nation, and of course, you are going to see that story on page 2 of the Nation this morning. Okay, let's look at Punch newspaper also, and let's see what the Punch is leading with. Well, Punch decided to stay with the Niger crisis, and it's saying that ECOWAS plans fresh sanctions on Burkina Faso, Mali as UN talks fails. Okay, that story is on page 2 of the Punch this morning. Okay, let's look at other stories on the front page of the Punch and above the nameplates of the Punch this morning. Labour rejects Gbajabiamila on subsidy negotiations, writes National Assembly. Well, that story has been appearing on the front page of the dailies over the few days now concerning the impasse between the NLC and the federal government since the removal of subsidy. Okay, let's look at the last paper for this morning, The Guardian. Let's see what The Guardian has on this front page this morning. Fear of sovereign debt. Default takes toll on banks' economic outlook. Okay. Well, you can pick up a copy of The Guardian to see, more on that story. Okay, let's look at one last story before we move on. TINUBU Sanwo-Olu members mourn Odukoya's passing. There was a sad event yesterday when the pastor, of course, the founder of the Fountain of Life Ministry, Pastor Taiwo Odukoya, passed on just yesterday. Okay, I'm afraid that's all we have for you on the front page this morning. Of course, we are coming back with a deeper and, of course, a very insightful analysis this morning with a very interesting guest who will be joining us via telephone call on uh on the show this morning. Okay, we'll be right back shortly. All right, so welcome back, and of course, it is still Vanguard this morning, and of course, we are now on the analysis segment, and of course, we have a very interesting guest, joining us via telephone call this morning in the person, Sir Ifeanyi Okoye. Sir Ifeanyi Okoye, good morning, and welcome to Vanguard Live this morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Right. Well, a couple of events, are making the news, on the front pages of dailies across Nigeria. And I'm sure you have been, following a couple of events lately. Of course, we are looking at what the president said yesterday when he said Nigeria is going to end. Nigeria is going to end over reliance on loans. What would you make of such statement? Of course, a lot of economists have come out to commend the president on such move. What would you make of that? That seemed to be the right path to go. Would you agree with me?
Actually, it's long overdue to make for the president to take such drastic action, which will be in the interest of the masses. But with such action, be backed up with the right approach. Because one, if we must stop reliance on debt from foreign nations, then you must look inwardly and fix the mess in your polity. How do you go about it? You must fight inflation.
Right.
You must reduce excessive waste in governance.
Right.
And by so doing, there will be enough to execute capital projects. And you must have people of like mind to drive such initiatives.
Right.
Because today, the greatest challenge the Nigerian state face is not what to do with money, but money is available. How is it being used to get to the masses, to create opportunity? So I think first of all, the president should put more effort on reducing cost of governance. Because without doing that, we are heading nowhere.
Well, you are talking about reducing cost of governance. I'm sorry I have to interject you there, but I think the president came out yesterday, from what the NLC president said. He said the president told them that he's living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and is that simply means that the president is equally looking at cutting costs himself. Isn't that the right thing to do? The president of Nigeria living in a 2-bedroom flat apartment.
Well, the president, we are just aware he resumed. He was sworn in recently, and he can't tell Nigerians he lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. Except he has not moved into Aso Rock. So we believing such stories, I think is not realistic, and it doesn't sound reasonable. Because Aso Rock is not a 2-bedroom apartment. Maybe he's here to move into the villa. So we can understand that.
All right, so you think you think that going forward, like trying to cut the cost of governance and looking inwardly to generate more of IGR, especially from states and all of that, might actually help us in putting an end to over reliance on loan. But other questions really have actually come up recently. Of course, somebody said that if you are looking at ending the loans and all of that, how well equipped are some of this tax institution we have in Nigeria to really deliver. People raised the question of corruption, nepotism, incompetence, and all of that. Do you think that we can actually look inward, generate this income and then be self-reliant on some of these things that we are generating?
It's very possible. It is doable. The most important is the political willpower to do it. And a good example is go back. At least everybody thought after 1 month or 2 months, the president will come up with a very against ministerialism. But funny enough, it became food for the boys. The history in Nigeria so far, having 48 ministers, not just having 48 ministers, you have nine of them are former governors. So he came up with some very brilliant young minds in the list, but still yet it fell off people's expectation. And back to what I said, like it still boils down on cutting cost of governance and driving a very good tailored inward solution, at least to boost our self-reliance, because there is no way you do such thing if you don't cut cost, one, and secondly, if you don't look inwardly by trying to produce and export to the global market to get more foreign exchange. Because why do we borrow money? We don't have enough. We are not self-reliant. We can't execute projects. We need more money, and we don't have our GDP fall short of what we need, because we are not a knowledge-based economy. We are economy we grow based on just the oil sector. We have not developed our ICT sector well. The agricultural sector is there. How do we look inwardly to all these sectors that can turn out billions of dollars yearly? Look at the global market and foreign revenue. Then we can talk of, we don't want to borrow more money, because it's telling us the economy so much. When you borrow so much and invest in foreign capital, don't forget that some of these borrowed money are being looted. Like when they tell us they're investing in infrastructure, what happens with the Abacha loot? That's a good example. And we only saw recently the president told us, they have been able to save $1 trillion, $1 trillion naira from the reduction of stopping subsidy payments, only for them to tell us that they are borrowing 500 billion to pay 12 million families 8,000 naira monthly. And those are things that are not realistic, and they are bad economic policy. Rather than that 500 billion, why don't you invest it in infrastructure to cushion people's effect on the removal of subsidy, and make transport cheaper and make foodstuff, subsidize it? So people are going through a lot, and with the way it's going, if things are not done, we keep borrowing.
Right. Okay. So if let's quickly move on to international matters now, and of course the issue of the coup in Niger is, of course, it's something that is on the lip of every Nigerian, and of course international observers that are actually following that event. Let's look at the latest story on it, and that's the ECOWAS issuing fresh sanction on Mali, Burkina Faso, and others for the role that they are playing in the Niger crisis. But of course, chief among them is United States yesterday saying that they may have to invade Niger if they are pushed further. What would you make of all of the things happening in Niger at the moment?
I'll tell you what is happening in Niger is it has been long overdue. African leaders does not respect democracy, and you expect the people to legitimize the government which are illegitimate. And it goes further to say that when the people is being pushed to the wall, they take their decision. What we are seeing is a gradual trend of uprising, revolution of military, right from Burkina Faso, Mali, and now to Niger and few of the other countries, legitimizing a military junta, which we have not seen in time past. What's the cause of this? In present reality, what we have over time with democracy across West Africa has been institutional coup, whereby a government that does not seek the legitimacy of the people has been sworn in by all crook and means, and inflict hardship on the people. And at the end of the day, you tell the people to respect you. See, the ECOWAS, literally, they don't speak for Africa as a whole. First and foremost, there cannot be a peace. There cannot be justice without peace. There can't be peace, without justice. Because if you must drive home peace, you must promote justice. These ECOWAS are they not aware that over the past 10 years, most of the leaders produced in Africa are not the wish of the people? It's not an express of democracy. Democracy is a festival of people's choice. So whatever is happening now is the lackluster of ECOWAS. And for you saying that we invade Niger, it will be inappropriate. Niger is a sovereign nation. They have all the rights. I am not supporting coup, but I want African leaders to sit and tell themselves the truth. we can't keep claiming we are having democracy and the people are being subjected to penury. The people don't have say to decide who govern them. And this is what you see. Then they are taking their destiny to their own hand. We only saw when the president of the military junta in Niger came back, and the people were in the streets trooping out, giving legitimacy to even a military government, which is not supposed to be so. And when people say, "Oh, with the one form of military is better than democracy," but in now West Africa, we are seeing that even the military somehow, even though you are not, you are not allowed to express your opinion or your rights, and the freedom of press are being trampled. But people are beginning to say, okay, if these things cannot be done under democracy, let's find an alternative. The best way to solve the issue in Niger Republic, it is not by invading them, because the local effect or the impact, negative impact it will have, will be a spiral effect not just to Nigeria but other neighboring countries. Because as it stands now, Niger has nothing apart from their mineral resources. And if such actions is taken, the neighboring nations will be victim of such. I believe the only solution available should be a way of roundtable discussion, dialogue, and seeing how
that seemed to have failed. That seemed to have failed.
That should keep dialoguing. They should keep dialoguing. Even though it takes them 6 months, there must be a way out. I believe there should be a sense of dialogue, asking the military junta, we are giving you so time, please. It's either you contest for election.
But don't you think maybe international interest is also fueling this crisis? We heard the story of Wagner, coming in, and like just yesterday, the U.S. Deputy State Secretary Noland said that Wagner coming into Niger would make the whole thing worse. And of course, maybe that's the reason why U.S. is looking at moving in or invading Niger before Wagner actually steps in. But of course, we are looking at some of this international interest. How does this whole thing affect Nigeria as a country, and of course as a country that is very, very close to Niger, as a neighboring country to Niger? What exactly should we be looking at at the moment, aside the fact that our president is also the ECOWAS chairman? How does this actually affect Nigeria as a country and as a neighboring country to Niger?
Definitely, there are other economic benefits that Nigeria will know one way or the other be affected. Even I said earlier, Niger is a sovereign nation. They have a right, and the interference from the Western powers is because of, like people will say, I think they have one or two interests. But notwithstanding, Nigeria will be affected. The uranium and other mineral resources, which has been a source of confrontation, that who wants to control stake. Like France has an interest and some of the Western powers. But with the way it's going, I can only say that Nigeria, like definitely, some of our livestock are being brought from Niger. That's going to create a problem for the Nigerian market. Beyond that, their airspace will be shut down. I think that's going to create another problem, because there will be no flight zone, and some flights, those are routes to some European countries. So it's going to be a problem. And the only way out, I will keep saying, is dialogue.
Right. Okay. So, Mr. Ifeanyi, let's quickly move on to other story before we let you go. Right. Well, of course, we see that federal government yesterday, begged the striking resident doctor to resume, saying that Nigerians are dying. Of course, we still have labor issues. Just yesterday, they rejected, some of the offers from the chief of staff to the president, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, and of course, now they've written to the National Assembly. What do you make of all of this? The back and forth coming from labor, the impasse, FG, labor, NLC, how does this affect ordinary Nigerians, and what exactly do you think is the way forward?
The lifeline of every society is its health sector. Those are one of the paramount issues that keeps a nation. And it's so sad over time, our labor union and the government in particular has not given the health sector the necessary importance, or created a living wage for young doctors. And the alternative is to look for greener pasture elsewhere where their services will be appreciated and needed. And the government only tell them, oh, you have to practice so time before you leave the nation. We don't have enough doctors for its citizens. We have few doctors and more citizens, and that's why you see the health sector is becoming a shambles. And we cannot boast of one of the best world health sectors within the globe. It is sad. The only thing I hope this regime or this dispensation under TINUBU will prioritize the health sector so much and create because I'm doing the issue of sincerity. I'm encouraging the doctors, not just encouraging them, give them incentive that will keep them here. You can't pay a doctor a peanut and you expect him to work all how his life,
Right.
and you expect patriotism for
Right.
him. He will look for elsewhere that will
Right.
make him more committed
Right.
and more creative.
Right.
So we need the president or the health sector to look inwardly.
Right.
Nigerians are dying,
Right.
and the rate of mortality is so high.
Right.
If it continues this way, I don't know. We will be faced. We will have no option that will be left with quacks and the medical doctors, which I don't think they have considered the long-term negative effect. And
Right.
this is why we are appealing to the system to do all necessary to keep our doctors.
Right. All
Push
right.
their morale.
All right,
and make them
I'm afraid
easy
that
to
sci-fi we may have to let you go now because of our time, and of course we hope to have you on our show anytime soon. Of course, it's really a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you very much, Mr. Ifeanyi. Many thanks to you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, so we've been discussing with Sir Ifeanyi Okoye, a public analyst, and of course, he has been providing us some very, very beautiful insight into some of the major happenings that made headlines in some of the national dailies across Nigeria this morning. And of course, it's still, of course, the show is today in the news, and of course, you do not forget to follow us and like all our social media platforms showing on the screen. My name remains Idowu Bankole. Of course, till tomorrow when we are back with fresh episode and of course fresh stories as the break. We would definitely, be here. Do not forget to share this video and of course follow us on all our platforms. Thank you very much.